you officially just came back from the cross seas.
Yeah, I was in Colombia for a little while.
Okay, okay.
Before that, you know, just toured around Eastern Europe and then in Scandinavia.
Wow, wow.
So just going around as many places as I can. You know, getting that euro while it was good, getting the pound while it was good.
Wow, it was good, huh?
Right before the exchange rate kind of crumbled.
Of course.
And you know, I try to stay on top of those economic situations in other places, so it gives me a better idea of how to invest my money.
Of course.
And as you can tell, I'm an individual that doesn't really floss. It's funny because I'm from Harlem and people are like, well, how come you don't have a chain or a card? I tell them, look, if I live in New York, a car is more of a problem than it is a good thing. You know, I could take a cab or a train anywhere where I really need to go. If I lived in Jersey or on the West Coast or down south, then a car is like a necessity.
Of course,
you
of course.
Take public transportation, you're fucked.
Of course. Which makes sense. Which makes sense.
I just invest the money based upon what I see. Like other people that I know had this idea that 401k was going to save their life, and now it's worth 60% of what it was before. I know a lot of people that lost tens of thousands of dollars. With me, I have a part.
Why South America?
I mean, that's where I was born.
Right, of course.
And I figured that land is something that's only going to increase in value. So the land that I bought originally per hectare, not by acre, because a hectare is like 2.5 acres of land. It's worth almost triple per acre what I got, and per hectare. So, what my initial investment is already triple. Whereas if I would have put it in some of these funds, or if I would have gone with the Madoff Ponzi scheme, I have no money. And it's funny because people look at that dude and they think, oh, that guy's nothing, and they don't understand. Bernie Madoff created the NASDAQ system. Him and his partners in that firm created the NASDAQ little electronic system with another. Him and his mans came together and did that. He's been plotting for 50 years. This interview is not about that clown.
No, of course.
I want to emphasize how important it is as not just a rapper, but as a businessman and as a man who wants to be able to support his family, that if you don't take into account what's going on in the world economically, well, then you're going to fail.
They used to call us communists for fighting America. Now they call us terrorists to spread hysteria. Well, let me just say this without sounding redundant. Who you think really gains the most from blowing up London? And who really made Bin Laden the man that he is? The CIA and Saudi Arabia did. But that's the past and the future is here. Iraq was a design. So for some people the future is clear. A Christmas tree pyramid with the star as an eye. Like a satellite in orbit watching me from the sky. Every country wants a piece of the American pie, but that means you have to co-sign America's lies.
Yeah, I mean, also I took a look at what their agricultural system was, and how, unfortunately, in a lot of countries in Latin America, basically whatever passes inspection is sold to America and Europe, and whatever doesn't pass inspection is sold back to the people themselves. I mean, that's the same thing in Central America. It's the same thing in a lot of places. If you go to, for example, the Dominican Republic, you'll find beautiful resorts where all the people can come and enjoy themselves. But then, you go about a mile outside the resort and you're going to see a house made out of fucking Reynolds wrap.
No.
Where the native people are supposed to live. You're going to find that in everywhere you go. And I think it's not a question of just sitting here and hurling accusations without you sitting down and understanding how that economic system came to be, how that country came to be in a sense. A lot of people don't understand that were it not for the failure of a British expedition, that the people in Jamaica would be speaking Spanish, and the people in DR would be speaking English. So the grandfather, and this is important for people to know this, because there's a lot of racism in the Latino community that I think we really need to deal with to understand it. I see people blacker than pepper talking about how they're not black. Right. I find that offensive only because, I'm Peruvian, but my grandfather was black. His family were actually slaves who bought their freedom and moved down to South America. And I know there are people that don't care about this, but this is not for you, because you're not going to do nothing with your life anyway. So go somewhere and fucking die, nigga. This is for people who care about what they want to do with their life. And I'm telling you that the grandfather of the man who founded Pennsylvania was charged by the British Crown to be a privateer. In other words, a licensed pirate. Imagine you in the hood and nigga say, the governor comes to you in your little project and says, yo, I'll give you the license to rob whoever you want from Queens. But when you come back to the Bronx with that money, you need to give me my 65%.
Right.
So he's a privateer, and the man sent him out to conquer this territory. Said, go to the Caribbean, do what you need to do. His flagship sunk when he attacked, I think it was Santo Domingo, right? And he was stuck in a position where he could either go back to England with nothing and fail and risk, being hanged. So he said, I can't do that. I have to do the next best thing. And he found the weakest Spanish port, which he then attacked and converted into Port Royal. Which, when he went there, he said, there's nothing here but a whole lot of African slaves. Fuck, we didn't find no damn gold and nothing like that. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna create a colony for the growth of luxuries here, sugar, whatever else it may be. And you still find the remnants of that, as in Spanish Town, in Jamaica and stuff like that. And you'll see that they took the slaves that were speaking Spanish at the time and retrained them to speak English, which is why patois in itself is a combination of African language, the English, and then you find tiny little splashes in the Spanish language.
So let me ask you this,
So you can criticize human rights in Cuba and China, but not in Israel, the Philippines, and places you find them that are allies of the country we live in, whose clothes are made by slave labor, women and children. Yeah, I know at some point we're all part of that hypocrisy too, but I don't front like it's democracy, Duke. I don't pretend troops are peacekeepers that don't murder, and they don't create colonies whose government serve us, moving them without economics like we shed a tectonic. Plates in your vest are no good soldier. The weapons are sonic. The war on terror evolved like strands of the chronic. From the weapons that's biologic to the propaganda topics.
with the fact of you having, which is great. I love it.
I'm just saying that to show how we connected as a people so much more than we realize. And
No. And which I
ignore that, you know what I mean, is to ignore the struggle of the Jamaicans and the Haitian people, who, by the way, are the creators of hip hop in the first place.
Yeah, and this is what leads me into, which helped me segue into just the fact of understanding your, who you are. You know what I mean? Because when you hear Immortal Technique, you just get that. You know what I mean? I know I do. I ain't gonna lie. I'm a fan. I'm a businessman, but I'm a fan also. And I say that I'm a fan in a sense because what you actually disseminated can be channeled in your music or whatever.
Right.
So your fan base, though you may not have quote unquote, and I say quote unquote, the mammoth companies behind you, but your fan base is large in the sense, you dig what I'm saying? And in this day and time, if you're not connected to the Hot 97s and so on and so forth, you feel that some people may feel that their point is in getting across or whatever. So how do you channel that music, that history, that information through your tracks or whatever?
Well, I mean, I think the traditional model for rap was to pay the radio, get the video on TV,
right,
and then tour last. Whereas the model for marketing in a rock and roll company or a punk rock company or something like that was to take it from the perspective of somebody who was touring, and then worrying about the radio and then all that other stuff. So really, since I learned the business from a whole wide array of people, not just hip hop, but people who were involved in rock and roll and reggae and stuff like that. And I said, all right, you know what I'm gonna do? Since this obviously isn't working for underground acts, trying to break onto the radio and break onto the video scene, I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna dedicate myself to learning the art of touring, which took me years to understand.
Wow.
I mean, it was good. Like, I observed other people on tour. I opened up for practically any act, from one side of the spectrum of rap to the other.
Right.
So I could do a show. I did a show with when I was coming up with opening up for Fat Joe or Joe Budden or G-Unit or Dipset, and then on the other side of it, I would do something with Dead Prez or Darryl March or Common or most Talib Kweli. So I began to understand that people liked hearing hardcore stuff, but they also appreciated the fact that the lyrics had a historical context for them. So it was just a sense of applying that to how I decided to do business. I looked at how the game was structured and I said, all right, well, how am I exactly going to do this? Later on, labels actually came to me to consult about specific artists, not like I had some secret thing that they can't learn for themselves.
Right.
They would rather pay and outsource that to have somebody come by and say, all right, well, what can I do for this person's live show, or how did you learn this? I mean, and I think it was just a growing process, you know? It wasn't like it's some secret, you know, ability to build atomic weaponry or some shit like that. It's basically paying attention to how clubs are run, you know what I mean? Paying attention to how tours are run, paying attention, and you learn different tricks from different people.
So let me ask you this. Now let's bring it back. You know, if you look at, you know, your bio or what have you, it states that you entered the world of, you know, the hip hop genre with your first album, which would have been 2000.
2001.
2001.
A week before 9/11.
Wow, incredible. So prior to that, right, was your approach to hit the larger markets, not even the larger markets, but the big companies, or was it to take the independent route?
Well, I mean, I'll admit it. When I first got out the joint, I was sitting there on parole, and I thought to myself, you know what, I really got to get a deal, and I was battling in the underground, freestyling on the street corners. And then I saw all these young brothers out there, you know, a lot of cats from the Heights, and from Harlem, and from Brooklyn, and all of them were talking about, oh, I'm going to get signed to this. And then I realized what a record deal actually was. It was essentially a loan with horrible interest rates where you didn't even get to keep the property.
Right.
At the end, when you paid everything back, they still own the masters and the publishing. If you buy a house and you pay it off, that house don't belong to the bank no more. It belongs to you. But the property, the intellectual property, didn't belong to us. So in a sense, it was an artistic form of slavery. And I said to myself, that's not what I want. Because if you control somebody economically, you can control them politically. You can control what they do. You know, so I looked at it from that perspective, and I said, you know what? This is not what I want. This is not what I want to do. You know, I just realized that that wasn't the life I wanted to live. Like, imagine you fell in love with a girl next door, right? And you thought she was beautiful her whole life. And then one day, you get word and you realize the bitch got herpes. You don't know disrespect, shorty, but you know what I mean? That's what it is. It's like you realize, hey, the idolized life that you thought you was going to get really just isn't what it is. So now, from that point is when I really said, you know what? I really don't care what these labels have to say, because a lot of them really weren't musicians in the first place. No disrespect to none of them. Actually, disrespect to some of them.
So it was a frustration, but it was a frustration there in the sense that, you know, okay, now I done did the battle and shit. You dig what I'm saying? I'm hearing everybody saying that they're gonna get signed, or they know this person that's looking at them.
It wasn't just frustration, it was revelation more than anything else, because I saw a lot of these brothers actually get signed, and then they never came out.
It was shelved for
the mixtape was hot, but the motherfucking album never dropped, you know, and it was a shame. Like, I thought there was so much talent in New York that just was not cultivated because there was nobody there to guide some of these people in a specific direction for their art, for their life, for their personal struggle. Everything became a carbon copy of the next person. And I saw the most amount of creativity in the mixtape scene. And then brothers was not putting creative stuff on what they wanted for the album. It was like they was going to be street and hip hop for the mixtape, and then pop and Justin Timberlake rap for the fucking album. And I thought to myself, you doing it so backwards. And I kept hearing the underground brothers saying, oh no, you don't understand. Yo, what I'm doing is I'm gonna come and do some commercial shit, and then when I get the power, you know what I mean, I'm going to flip it on them. And I was like, brother, I've never seen nobody do that. Like, imagine if Biggie Smalls came out and in Life After Death, he was doing a Public Enemy record. People wouldn't get it, you know what I mean? Right. Public Enemy came out with the first record, or Dead Prez came out, and then the second record was a Players Anthem type record, you know what I mean? It wouldn't fit the genre of what you was trying to do. It would be like, unless you had some life-altering thing in your life.
It was contradicting.
People expect you to be who they say you are, unless your career is built off completely being a storyteller, which is a whole nother story.
Yeah, of course. Now, so what was the name of your first album?
My first album was called Revolutionary Volume 1.